Hey, welcome to Daily Devo. I'm Pat. Today we're going to talk about the greatest commandment. Over 2,000 years ago, Jewish rabbis identified the Shema as one of the most important Jewish traditions. Now, the Shema, we've talked about it before, is one of the first things a child will learn. And then for the rest of their life, they'll quote it every single morning and every single night. And it's the last prayer quoted on the holiest day of the year for the Jews, Yom Kippur. The Shema actually comes from Deuteronomy chapter 6 and gets its name from the last word or the first word of the passage, Shema in Hebrew. By the time Jesus lives on this earth, the Jews were quoting this twice a day. It would begin this way. They would cover their eyes and they would say in Hebrew, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. But the next thing they would say is the following verses, which is, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. Why is this important? Well, during the last week of Jesus' life, some of the religious leaders came to Jesus and they tried to trap him by asking, what was the most important commandment? Now, there were 613 commandments in the Torah. So which one was the most important is something that religious leaders had been arguing incessantly about for a long time. Jesus' answer is significant for them at that moment and for you and me today. Look what happens in Mark chapter 12, verses 28 to 30. One of the teachers of religious law was standing there listening to the debate. He realized that Jesus had answered well, so he asked, of all the commandments, which is the most important? Jesus replied, the most important commandment is this. Listen, O Israel, or hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is the one and only Lord. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. Now remember, just that morning, all of the Jews that are hearing Jesus' answer, they quoted that morning. But watch what Jesus says next. Verse 31, the second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. No other commandment is greater than these. Years later, one of Jesus' disciples, one of the men that had been standing there, a guy named John, who witnessed this interaction, wrote a letter to a group of Jesus followers. And in 1 John chapter 4, verse 20, he wrote this. If someone says, I love God, but hates his neighbor, that person is a liar. For if we don't love people that we can see, how can we love God whom we cannot see? Wow. Do you get the significance of this? Jesus is saying that everything hangs on two commands, to love God and to love others. And later, John would tell us that if we claim to love God and we don't love others, then we're liars. So the irreducible minimum of what Jesus is saying is to love others. Meaning that today, if you and I plan on loving God, one of the most important ways we will do this is to love others. In fact, if we claim to love God and do not love others, then we're lying to ourselves. How you and I treat our spouse, our children, our coworkers, our fellow students, whomever we come in contact with, is directly related to our love for God. At the end of today, if our love for God was going to be evaluated, it would not be evaluated so much on your prayers, although those are important. It would not be evaluated so much on your devotional time, although that is so important. It would not be evaluated so much on time spent meditating and dwelling on God, although that is so important. It would not be evaluated so much on your worshiping God in song, although that's so important. If our love for God was going to be evaluated at the end of today, it would be evaluated primarily on how you and I treat all the people we come in contact with. My friend, may you and I love well today.